Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's What's Up Wednesday series. If you're new here, we meet with guests of our network and share out resources to the childcare industry. Today, we have Cassie Leyva with us, Manager of Marketing and Foundation Relations with the David and Laura Merage Foundation. And she's going to be going over all things child tax credit and more, and kind of why that's important to the industry. So, hey, Cassie, welcome, and thanks for being here.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Of course. So kick us off today just by briefly explaining your role and kind of what you do for David and Laura Merage Foundation and what CFAC is.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, I'm the Marketing and Foundations Relations Manager at the David and Laura Merage Foundation, and we run a national policy awareness and reform campaign and really trying to get the public aware of some of those policy reforms for the childcare industry. And that's called Care for All Children. And our goal is really to advocate for affordable, high quality childcare for all children across the nation. And so we partner with lots of organizations, including ELV, to get the word out on these different policy reforms that are happening at a state level as well as the federal level. And one of those policies is the child tax credit, and that is a federal tax benefit that is a little bit mysterious, right? So these various different policies at the state, local level, municipality level, it can get really confusing and it can be really overwhelming for providers and parents to navigate that. And so today we'll talk a little bit about what the child tax credit is, what that means, and then really what the role of childcare providers can be in helping to alleviate some of that frustration in navigating all of these different kind of changing environments and changing policies that drastically impact the future of the childcare industry.
Sure, especially those who aren't even aware. Yeah, so kind of pointing to that specifically, who all can benefit from the tax credit, and when did those payments start?
Yeah, so one thing to remember is that the child tax credit has existed for years, and that was a benefit that families or that parents saw at the end of the tax season. What this administration has done has expanded that tax benefit. And what that means is that families will see more money, but also the amount of families that are eligible for this tax benefit is wider. So in the past, it was really for working families, those who had a higher income threshold. And this particular expanded tax benefit, which is temporary, it is from July of 2021 to December, is really for all parents across the nation. And what we're seeing in addition to just the more money, is the monthly deposits. And this is crucial when we see families that are really struggling just with the general cost of raising children, but in particular, the rising cost of childcare. Right. These monthly deposits allow families to pay for childcare and other expenses that otherwise would have been out of reach. The money coming at the end of the year just wouldn't help them month to month. So what we really want to remember is that the child tax credit has been around, but the expanded child tax credit and these monthly deposits is temporary. And those did start in July, and they should be automatically deposited into parents' bank accounts. Okay. Now, there are some caveats to that. And for example, if you had a child between last tax season and this tax season, you may notice that you only got the benefit for one of your dependents. And coming in August, there will be a portal that allows you to update that you now have two children instead of one, let's say. Sure. And that portal, what's really nice about that is that if you fill out the portal in September, you're not out the money from July to September. They will back pay you all of that money. So we don't want people to panic. I know some people were like, I only got money for one dependent and I have two. Why did I only see $300 in my bank account instead of $600? And so come August, you can go into that portal and fill that out, and then you'll get back paid for the months that you missed. The other sort of benefit of this expanded tax credit, again, is that broader parent benefit. So we're talking about some of the lowest income earners,
Sure.
Those who may already qualify for subsidies. This is an enormous benefit to them. And we look at that as an opportunity for those lowest income families to have layered support. So they might see those subsidies and they might see other benefits from various different programs that they now can layer these funds on top of to afford the childcare that fits their family's needs. And then there's one other kind of earner group, if you will, that is sort of the lowest earners, and that is called the non-filers. And the non-filers there are 3 million children that live in non-filing households. So we want to stress the importance that if you think you're a non-filer household, or someone you know is in a non-filer household, that you go onto the IRS website and fill out the non-filer form. And what this will do is make you eligible for these monthly payments, in addition to any and all back stimulus that you maybe didn't receive.
Missed out on. Gotcha.
Yeah. And that is huge. I mean, imagine thousands of dollars potentially for some of these families to really stabilize them and allow them to address some of that financial insecurity that they maybe have seen over the last few months.
Sure.
So we really need to help our community. We need to look out for families we may be interacting with, or community members that we may be interacting with that might not be aware of this non-filer portal, where these funds could be life-changing for their family. Yeah. We also don't want to underplay the impact of this for those families that are right above the subsidy line. So those are often called ALICE families. And those are families that potentially make enough money that they're not qualifying for subsidies, but are still not really making the income they need to pay for the rising cost of childcare. And as we know, childcare is essential for working families. And we really need to ensure that as a market, as the entire childcare industry is evaluating itself after an extremely difficult year, that we think about some of these federal and state policies as sort of a pie chart, an opportunity to increase parents' purchasing power. And that's what the child tax credit does, is it allows parents more choice.
Right.
It allows parents more just financial ability to pay for the services that they need, as well as the federal investment in providers, in the industry as a whole. And when we think about what that looks like and the makeup of that, I think of it as a pie chart, is that there's various different pieces that we need to come together and really need the public support in order for the entire childcare market to function in a healthy way. And we all deserve that, not just the children,
Absolutely,
but business owners, parents, grandparents, and just the economy at large. We all need a robust child care infrastructure in this country. And the child tax credit, the expanded child tax credit, is one of those pie pieces that we need to ensure is permanent. And
right.
and really ensure that that continues with that federal investment, so that as we work on those other pieces, we're working towards a healthier childcare market.
Longer than just 1 year. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the things that we think about is parents, particularly from ages 0 to 5, are maxed out. They're exhausted. Childcare providers are exhausted. We're working in a really difficult industry, and asking people who are already tired to join an advocacy movement like Care for All Children is a lot.
It's a huge ask. Yeah.
Absolutely. But the reality is the time is now. We have, COVID really shined a light onto this industry and gave us an opportunity to really speak up and to remind our politicians that this is the bedrock of our economy, and that as a provider, you deserve more support. As a parent, you deserve more support. And so I know it's a lot, and I know it feels like yet another thing to advocate for, right? We've got lots of reform that we're passionate about. But luckily, organizations like Care for All Children, the entry point can be quite simple. And part of that is just sharing your story.
Sure.
We hear of the hardships, and ELV is a perfect example. Your team interacts with these providers regularly and understands the challenges, but our politicians do not. And Congress needs to hear from you. You are the expert, and we're not going to get that voice from anyone else. And so, really trying to tackle this alone, it's too tall of a mountain to climb alone. And so that's why Care for All Children is really passionate about bringing together those voices and then helping form policy with policymakers, as well as taking that unified drumbeat of, this isn't okay, this isn't working, this isn't sustainable, and really pushing on Congress to act, to do something. And our opportunity, our window right now, and our tool is the expanded child tax credit. And we really need the entire childcare community to come together and say, this little piece of the pie is what we're going to focus on. It's what we're going to advocate for. It's what we're going to speak out against or speak out for, but speak out against those challenges. Sure. And we're going to knock those pie pieces down one by one. And right now is really our window to ensure that the expanded child tax credit is permanent. Because the 6-month window, although it's helpful and will pull millions of families out of poverty, we will see a lot of those families struggle once it's gone. And we need to ensure that it's there. And not just families, the industry as a whole really could use that influx of income to address quality, to address multiple areas of your business that are just things we can't get to.
So yeah, speaking on those, based on just research and just communication that we've been doing over the course of the couple of weeks, kind of what's that common consensus on how providers are feeling, what that impact will be on their businesses moving forward?
Sure. So we are hearing cautious optimism. And one of the reasons is that 6 months of this additional income, a lot of providers are a little bit hesitant in saying that's going to come to childcare.
Right.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that we really need to do a better job on, and that's something that Care for All Children is working on, is really getting providers to see how this impacts the industry as a whole, and potentially could impact their center or their home-based care in a way that they maybe didn't consider. So one of those things is families that are getting CCAP subsidies.
Yep.
You might be able to say, oh, the expanded child tax credit will help them pay for their copays. And that direct line from the child tax credit to tuition, it seems like that's a pretty clear line. Now, some providers are saying, I wonder if that's going to come my way. Right. Families are so behind, or families, I know they're struggling putting food on the table, so I don't know if that's going to trickle into, into the childcare center. But we want to think beyond tuition. So, for example, we know multiple childcare providers that buy coats and jackets and boots and extra food, all of those things, because they love the children and they care for the children in their centers. And those are things that the parents now have more ability to provide for.
To do so, right?
Absolutely. And then I think the other thing that we want providers to think about is that it is hard to manage your business or to plan for your business with a benefit that is only lasting 6 months, right? When we talk about a business plan, we're talking 3, 5 years, 10 years, that sort of planning. And
long-term, right?
Yeah. And what is this short little kind of benefit going to look like? Well, that is exactly why we need this to be permanent. Is we need parents to think about their budgeting, to think about their childcare choices for the next year, for the next 2 years. Yeah. And the ability for parents to pay more and to find childcare that better fits their family's needs means that there will be stability for providers. Right. There will be stability in the market. And then additionally, as parents sort of think about that long-term planning, that absolutely will impact their general affordability of childcare. And that's going to impact how childcare providers plan for quality, or plan for expansions, or plan for additional programming. Mm. And so we want to think about that in a longer term, which is why the permanency is so important. And then I think the other kind of cautious optimism that we're hearing from some providers is really, this feels very big and loose, and what is federal policy? What does this really look like? And I'll wait and see.
Sure. Yeah.
The catch is that we can't wait and see. We need this. No yes, we need to optimize on this time and come together and advocate for the permanency. And understandably, some providers are saying, grants, loans, some of these things that they were seeing out of the CARES Act and over COVID is really what made the biggest impact on their business. But again, we want to look at this from an entire market industry standpoint. And the more that parents have the ability to pay, the more that absolutely will impact the way people are choosing childcare, the way that they are evaluating what does and doesn't work for their families, when those promotions might arise for a family, that they now can consider that money, that extra income from the child tax credit, as a factor to whether or not, they're comfortable moving out of that subsidy range. Or, The other thing we don't want to forget are maybe families that are in the middle. And when we say the middle, that's still pretty, these are nursing jobs, these are nonprofit teachers, very respectable careers that are just frankly not making enough money to pay for the rising costs of childcare.
Right.
And so we really want to encourage those families to consider those promotions or consider moving from an employer they're not happy with, or whatever the situation is, so that they can better themselves and that they can choose what is right for their families in that moment. Mm-hmm. And that choice will benefit childcare providers. And so I think it's a little outside of the day-to-day, perhaps. We're thinking about, how many wipes do we have left? Do we have enough, food diapers for the kids? Right. Are there enough milks in here? All of those things that we worry about day to day as a childcare provider. This is really something that if childcare providers can start thinking about them as the front line to educate their families about, why is childcare so expensive? Well, it's complicated, but it's not because childcare providers are gouging families.
Right.
Instead, if anybody cares about these families and these children, it's absolutely childcare providers.
Right.
And so ensuring that childcare providers are a part of this advocacy and a part of this education to say, hey, did you know that the child tax credit is temporary? Did you know that you can use your child tax credit for childcare? That's an important thing to remember here as well, is that the child tax credit is not specifically for childcare.
It's just money.
It is non-restricted funds. So you could pay for formula, diapers, clothing, but you could also buy a boat. You could also remodel your home, whatever that looks like. And I think we really, as an industry, need to remind parents and childcare providers are those, day to day are interacting with parents, remind them that those funds help make childcare more affordable and get parents to make that connection.
That priority,
because a lot of parents aren't. And it's really in our best interest to make sure that parents think when that $300 or that $600 comes into their account, that they're thinking, oh, Miss Susie at the child care center, we love her and we want to keep going back to her, and our children love it there and they're growing and they're, in an enriching environment, and that's a priority. So I'm going to use those funds for that.
And right.
Absolutely. And so childcare providers are really at the center of that and really have an opportunity to educate their families a bit on what this could mean for them, and essentially even just provide resources. We don't all have to be experts on this. And admittedly, it's changing, right? We had the American Rescue Plan that came, that was released. There's lots of talk. Are pieces of it going to be extended? What's going to be permanent? What's going to go through reconciliation? And is Congress, where all of these things that are lots of buzz, right. Loose ends. And what does it all really mean? Well, what it really means is that we absolutely are in a childcare crisis. And as these tools come out, particularly from, like the child tax credit from the federal government, it's really about optimizing and taking that and ensuring that we have a voice at the table and saying, this is what it means. This is what it could mean. And I know that some of this is it's a little bit unknown, but we are certain that this will pull millions of families out of poverty just in the 6 months. But childcare providers and parents cannot plan appropriately, and it will not make the lasting impact on the child industry that we need if it's not permanent. And so we need everybody to come together to really help us advocate for that.
So what is the best call to action or kind of best way to advocate, just resources or informational wise? Where can people go to with those questions?
Absolutely. So careforallchildren.org is one of many advocacy organizations, but of course, we would love to join hands on this. We have toolkits, we have social media posts that are ready to post, following us on social media and sharing that, taking resources. So one of those resources we'll share after today's conversation, that is a little flyer for the expanded child tax credit, and sharing that with your network, sharing that with your family, sharing that with your neighbors. Like I said, we have folks all over in our community that aren't aware of what this could mean. And if they're one of those non-filers, it's a very simple form, and suddenly they're getting support that they've needed for years. And so we really need to be loud and proud about what this is and what it could mean. And then your stories, what this looks like, what this could mean for you as a parent, what this could mean for you as a preschool teacher, what this could mean for you as a provider, as, a policymaker, whatever that looks like. Bringing those stories together and saying we're a chorus of, not only folks that care for our children, but really recognize childcare as an essential piece of our economy. And in order to allow families the choice to work, they have to have childcare. Right. And so we as a society need to come together to ensure that that is strong enough for all of Americans to plug into.
And use that opportunity, for the betterment. Exactly.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I want to give you the rest of your day. We could literally ramble for hours. We already know this.
Absolutely. And if there are any questions, if there are materials that you're like, I would love to send this to my families, what can I send them? Absolutely. I am always available. Care for All Children is always available to answer those questions, address those needs. And, we want to hear your experiences and your ideas, and really, truly know that your voice matters, and that this is the time for us to really beat that drum and say, Congress, now's the time. We need to save the industry now, because we can't wait. As a business owner, you deserve that. And so it's now is our time, which is exciting.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what's like a billboard slogan that you'd share out kind of as your one final thought, but now's the time kind of seems like that would be it for you.
Now's the time. And the other thing is, what does the child tax credit have to do with childcare? Everything. We don't want to forget that this is a market, and that the more parents have to pay, the more purchasing power parents have, the more that floods into our market. And then we're going to knock down those other pieces of the pie as well. And we're going to keep the advocacy going, because we all need it.
Right. Awesome.
Great. Well, thank you.
I could not have done better. Yeah. I will share the resources Cassie mentioned in the comments. Whatever platform you're watching this on, you will have those as well. But if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to myself or Cassie. We're here for you, and we're here to do anything and everything that we can, as always, for you all. So we appreciate it, Cassie. Thank you so much. And
we'll see everybody next week. Yes. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.